Hello friends! In this episode we'll see some of the results, all of the successful germinations and the joy of following their growth. But we'll show you the failures too, and we'll see what we can learn from them. But first, let me finish washing these jars from earlier explants and failed attempts. We have to sterilize and clean to reuse, or the price tag will be hard to deal with. I confess I'm not the tidiest and most organized among orchid collectors, but when it comes to seeds and jars, it is imperative to keep good track, to tag and register all that you do. Let's see what we can learn from my notes and results. Okay then, bad news first. My first crossings, number 1 and number 2, were a total failure. More than half of the jars were contaminated with molds. Back then, I was using my first model of glove box, which had a few problems. The walls were too flexible, and that produced a sort of a bellows effect, pulling air in from the outside as I manipulated the objects inside. To fix that, in the model I showed you in episode 4, I used double layered walls and the top at an angle, making the whole setup much more rigid. The other half of the jars did not have any germination at all, and I think pH is to blame. The water I get from the state company is very hard, which means it has too much mineral dissolved in it. We can try to adjust the pH, but in short time the minerals bring the reading up high again, and that's bad for germination. Taking from these first bad results, I began collecting and using rainwater, and my rate of success improved manifold. You can also use distilled water, but we try to keep all costs at a minimum around here. Boiled rainwater works really well. The crossings number 4, number 5, and number 9 had their fruits aborted not long after pollination. Crossings 7 and 6 were used to try ex vitro seed propagation using the plastic jar technique, but it was to no avail. Not in vitro, therefore they don't count for our statistics. But by far the most frustrating was crossing number 10. Ironically, it's the one I showed you here in episode 6 of this series of videos. Quite a few months after sowing, even with no contaminated jars, there was no germination at all. At first I thought it was because I had to share my attention between recording and doing the procedure. I think the seeds ended up staying in the disinfection solution for longer than ideal. So I tried seeds from the same fruit a second time, very carefully. But it's past its 5th month and nothing. I believe these are just sterile seeds. Now let's get to the happy cases, the ones that are working out well so far. Starting with crossing number 3 between Cattleya persivalianus. They were my first successful germination. I did lose up to 30% of the jars early on from fungus contamination, but the good ones had good growth in them, and I did my first reflasking from 2 of those jars. But it was not without any problems after all. In some of the jars, the protocorms began to lose color and ended up dying. I believe it was oxidation, which is an important subject that we'll discuss in the next video, along with replating. See how the roots are growing much faster than the leaves here? I think it is either the medium formula or the lack of venting, or even some other reason. I'm not complaining. More roots are better than insufficient roots. The second case of germination success was this one, number 8, between siblings of Cattleya trianae rubra. Sibling crossings can yield more of the parent's traits in generation F2. They are still here in their first jar, but it is past the time to replate. Oxidation is already showing its ugly face. In this other jar, there are fewer protocorms and their health seems to be way better. But sowing just a few seeds is not easy. Even the tiniest amount can count several hundreds of seeds. And now we get to crossing number 11. It was the fastest and strongest of germinations around here so far. Even in the symbiotic plastic containers, there was a good deal of germination. It is a primary hybrid called Cattleya generalpo, crossing between Cattleya labiata amethystina and Ludemoniana caerulea. Look how packed are these protocorms. All of these were sown from a green seed pod, the safest way to do it, since you avoid the aggression to the seed that happens upon disinfection with bleach or peroxide. Crossing number 12, in turn, was a 50-50 case. Some sown from green pod, some from open pod and with seed disinfection. Both cases produced germination, but green sowing was much faster, healthier and abundant. It is a cross between very complex hybrids, and I'm dying curious to see the outcome. With some luck in 5 or 6 years. Crossing number 13 between two good Cattleya intermedia parents was all sown from dry, open pod, but the rate of success was very good. Only one jar lost to contamination out of 7, and the growth is in good pace. Soon we'll be talking about the replating process, why and how. Stay tuned by subscribing and ringing the bell. And help us grow by giving us a thumbs up.